Okay. Let's see how we do today. Give it a few here. Open up on the YouTube. Well, it is showing that I'm live, so that's good. Just, okay, I have to remember there's always that very, very slight delay with these things. Through there. But it do. All right, cool. We are live. Give it a few minutes, see if anyone shows up. If not, well, I'll just make this a quick little lecture video and then get out of here. Yeah, I'll give it like 5 more minutes. If you are watching the replay, I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm sure it is super fun watching me sit here awkwardly and stare at my screen. Boop, 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 ba-doo. Got some programs to update after this. No, looks like someone else is here. If you're joining in, if you could please just say hello in the chat, that really helps me out. I just want to kind of see what attendance looks like for these things, you know. Might even need to play with what day I'm doing these, who knows. I wish there was a way to actually see who was joining in, just so I could say hi to you, even if you don't say hello. Hey, Chris, thanks for joining in. And hello, Derek. Alrighty, so the chat seems to be delayed, but it looks like the stream itself is relatively solid. So we got Chris, we got Derek. Guys, thanks for taking the time out of your day on Sunday to hang out with me. Do we have any questions from the Peanut Gallery before I dive into the programming whatnots? If we don't, I'm just going to do it to it. Okay, cool. So if there are no questions, guys, I'm going to go ahead and dive into the programming side of things. The big topic today is talking about errors that I made in my preparation for my first Strongman show here and how I'd fix it. Big thing is this is not going to be a pity fest where I'm, oh, woe is me, I'm so stupid and I suck. But I want to be very objective and talk about what could I have done better, right? There was an old lesson I learned from my debate coach my freshman year of high school that I really loved. He always said, you either win or you learn. Those are the two outcomes. And if you fail to learn when you come up short, that's when you lose, that's when you fail. And I can say right now, I have learned a lot prepping for this show relative to how I used to prep and also understanding who I am as a person and how I've changed. So let's go ahead and dive into the errors that I made. The biggest error above all else is I did not treat myself as one of my athletes. And what I mean by that, I just told myself, oh yeah, run whatever good programming metric, whatever looks good on paper, you know how to write great programs and progressions, Mark, you got this. And the problem with that is there was no individualization, right? It'd be like saying, oh yeah, you can use 531 for everything. That's totally good. It's proven, without understanding individual needs. So for me, by just kind of thinking of myself as a blank slate as opposed to an individual human being, I shorted myself. I didn't think about what happens to me when I'm running certain training cycles or what goes on. Sorry, I've got my phone over here, so I'm using this to help me kind of keep track of the chat as well. But anyways, all right, so what did I do wrong and failing to think about me? One of the big issues I have, and it's one that I think actually got worse during this prep, is performance-dependent self-worth. What I mean by that is I put way too much pressure on myself to hit a certain weight on my top sets, for example. So, like, oh, I have to hit 230 on the log, and if I couldn't hit it, I'd be pissed at myself. I'd start lollygagging the rest of the session. I wouldn't push very hard on my accessories. I'd almost just want to throw in the towel. Obviously, some maturity and growing up is going to be important for helping me there too. But on the other side of that, we want to preempt it. And why did I not individualize my programming, Chris? That's actually a good question. I hate admitting it. I just got lazy. I just figured any sort of good quality programming and progression I had run with others is obviously going to work on me, right? The principles of programming remain the same. And they do remain the same, but by neglecting to understand my own individual habits and proclivities, I failed to do myself justice as my own coach. A good example is, if I give someone 3 to 6, let's say I give someone 3 sets of 6 to 8 at a given weight range, and I find they're always opting for sets of 6 at the heavier end of the range, I know that's someone who likes to push a little bit heavier. There's someone who enjoys those lower reps, and especially for, let's say, muscle building outcomes, sets of 5 to 30, it doesn't really matter which. So rather than try to force that person to do sets of 8 at a lighter load, I'm just going to give them the heavier 6s unless there's really a pressing need. And I didn't do that with myself. I just said, stick to these progressions. They've given others great results, Mark. There's no reason it wouldn't work for you. But it did work, but not as well as it could have. And that's the reason, like I was saying earlier, that performance-dependent self-worth. Because I'd get mad at myself or frustrated with myself that I wasn't progressing as fast as I think I should have been. That's, the curse of being a coach sometimes is you don't treat yourself as well as you do your own athletes. Same reason why chefs tend to wind up eating a lot of dinosaur nuggets, because they don't want to cook as much for themselves. So for me, I didn't want to coach myself as much. But again, that's a maturity and a growing up thing. That's on me. There's no excuses being made. It's not like I'm too busy to take 10 minutes a week or 10 minutes a day and check in with myself. So the performance-dependent self-worth really limited my log development there, because then I wouldn't want to do my accessories. I'd be pissed off. I'd be miserable. So I need to not be using open-ended top set protocols in the future when it comes to my pressing events, especially the log, because I have a hate-hate relationship with it. I like the log, but I'm not, it's one I'm not naturally very good at. It takes a lot of work to get better. And then on the other side of that too, I did the log with too much frequency. Doing it 2 times a week was a very big mistake, and that beat the hell out of my low back, right? So then my recovery was shot. That negatively impacted my deadlift development. That also impacted my loading. That negatively impacted my moving events, just all across the board. By hyperfixating on the log and not in a productive manner, it just downstream everything went poorly. And what I meant by open-ended sets is stuff like, hit, an RPE 8, an RPE 9, whatever. I didn't have a specific target that I was trying to hit. So by not having that target, essentially I just tried to make everything into a, PR session. Not even a max effort session, but a PR session. AMRAP sets, I'm actually a very big fan of AMRAP sets. I think they work really well, especially for me. I think AMRAP sets on upper body, if it's a pressing variation, goes really good. Not so much on jerks, but that's a different animal. And on deads, I am all about the AMRAP sets. I think for me personally, AMRAP sets and I are best friends on the deadlift. That's why you'll often see I don't do a ton of deadlift volume in the sessions, because I don't need to, because I've got so much work in from my AMRAPs, if that makes sense. Just 1 second. I want to see how the stream is doing. Okay, cool. So stream is still doing really good. All right. So that's how I would look at it there with my open-ended top sets. I would have dropped that. Log would have gone down to 1 time a week, and I would have done more developmental work. Think same but different pressing variations, such as a 50-degree neutral bar incline press. That would have done wonders for helping improve my log strength. Doing push presses with the axle to help improve my dip and drive mechanics would have also been very beneficial. So were I to rework the log, what I would have done is I would have run a much more basic linear program And then I would have allowed myself fatigue singles after I've hit my top set. That way, on the days that I was feeling good, I could work up. And because with that approach, with my fatigue singles, right, my top set would have been hit, so I would have been feeling confident. So even if I had missed on my fatigue singles, it would have been a simple, to hell with it, I got what I needed done. That way, I wouldn't have gotten that negative hyperfixation locking myself in and creating that negative feedback loop of performance-dependent self-worth. Pretty simple. So that is the biggest thing was my log prep. On the deadlift, honestly, I would have just simplified things. I would not have tried to run this pseudo max effort wave that I did. I just would have gone grug mode on that. And what I mean is I would have done a heavy set of 5 to 8, dropped it by, say 20%, and then a backup set of 10 to 12, and just add weight every single week. I think that would have been a much smarter approach for me. I do really well with low volume but higher intensity on the deadlifts. 2 hard sets a week is plenty for myself. My deadlift is still doing okay. I think the big challenge is the 635 before I turn 35. I'm dancing on the knife's edge with that. I think back in August or even July, I would have been a lot more confident on hitting it. But the log training, the improper programming, it has beat up my low back. My recovery is a little shot on the deadlift, but I still think I might be able to pull it together. And even if I don't, I have to remind myself, did I win the 635 before 35? No, I didn't. But I've only lost if I fail to learn lessons from this. And my big lessons are simplify, 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 because I do better with simplicity and not having open-ended sets, especially for pressing and the log in particular. I have to keep it far away from the deadlift in my training, or at least have the log be several days before the next deadlift session rather than, trying to deadlift after doing log in the same training week. It does not go well for me. On Friday sessions, I would have just had that be a bro day, more bodybuilding, kind of a quasi-max effort bodybuilding day where we would have gone with a press of choice, some dips, and then a bunch of arm work. Bigger, stronger arms are never going to be a negative, and that also probably would have helped me in terms of stabilizing the log overhead. That would have helped with my tricep lock, my lockout and stability. Pretty simple operation there. I'd probably do a bit more frequency with the yoke as well. I think that would have been good for me. I just would have undulated it, do a heavy week, light week, heavy week, light week, something like that to help manage the low back fatigue rather than 2 weeks on, 1 week off. I think more frequent touches, especially because I do use a chain yoke versus an actual yoke, would have benefited me with my skill development. So that's just kind of a brief overview of what I feel I could have done better in my own programming. So if I were to rewrite it, here's what my training week would have looked like. And let me just put the days of the week here. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, right? Monday, I would have had my big deadlift sets, then Zercher good morning, some yoke work, and a couple core exercises. Not a lot going on in that day, but it doesn't need to be a lot. It would have been highly productive. The Zercher good morning, that would have been very beneficial for helping improve core and upper back and midline strength. And that would have helped with my sandbag work. That also would have helped me a little bit with my farmer's walk. And you could make the argument, actually, big thing is it would help with my Husafelt. So that's what I would have done there. On the log day, which is Tuesday, because deadlift doesn't fatigue my low back as much as log does, so I can deadlift before I log, there's no problem. But if I log before I deadlift, big problem. Usually if I wind up getting tweaked in my low back, it's because I tried to do max effort log the day before I did max effort deads. Stupid. I would have gone with a more basic program, something like some triples and then fatigue singles for 3 weeks, some doubles, then fatigue singles, then singles, and then fatigue singles. Would have done complexes. For example, if you're on my Instagram, I did that thing, the Manda complex, which is 2 log front squats, 2 viper presses, and 2 push presses. I would have done something like that where it would have been 2 log squats, 2 paused dip push jerks, and then 2 push jerks regular. That would have helped with my rack position as well as my dip and drive mechanics. Again, this is what I get for rushing my programming and not treating myself as one of my own athletes. Then I would have gone to a 50-degree press and then a floor press after that for tricep and lockout strength. Also, that would spare my pecs a little bit, be easier on the shoulders because of the partial ROM. Some tricep work, a couple upper back exercises, could be chest supported rows, lat pull downs, anything like that. Most likely would have been chest supported rows and face pulls, however, and that would have slotted in really nicely there. Reason these are at the very end is that way I can keep my elbow sleeves on for these first 4 exercises and then ditch them. Makes it a little more convenient, right? Now, Thursday, what I would have done here is I would have done a full Zercher developmental wave. So what that is is that would have been an axle deadlift from the floor where I then turn it into a Zercher squat. That would have been awesome for my Husafeld carry, as well as core, mid-back strength, and I think even triple extension with the sandbag to shoulder. Would have run something like set a timer for 20 minutes and work up to the best triple I could. While that is a quasi-max effort because of how cardio intensive that would have been, it would not have generated that much low back fatigue in my opinion, and it would have kind of gotten me locked in mentally for the day. I do love time domain work, so if I set a timer for 20 minutes and at the top of every 2 minutes I had to do a full Zercher triple, I think that would have lined out really nicely. Then I would have done a bent over row here. Let's see, I don't have a training week to 10 plus minutes with PT. So something like that, Chris, where I extend my training week to 10 plus days. I know Chad Wesley Smith and Josh Bryant, they would do a 9-day work week. That's definitely a great option. However, for myself personally, I know it wouldn't have worked too well just with my weekly schedule with my job. It would have been smarter just to take my own programming far more seriously rather than trying to create a novel system, if that makes sense. Because I know plenty of systems and progressions. I just didn't give myself the respect that I deserve. What I should have done is told myself, okay, if I can win this, I'll, buy myself a prize or something. That way I'm functionally paying myself. So I would have had a little bit more buy-in versus just slapdashing together some progressions and hoping for the best. That makes sense. So then after the full Zercher, then I do a bent over row of choice. Probably would have been something like a sandbag row. That would have been good just for carryover. Maybe plate rows, not a standard barbell row though. Even a Swiss bar bent over row would be good. I'd want something just slightly awkward to row. That way it hits the upper back a little bit more. Then I would have done either a farmer's or a Husafeld carry, just alternating between the two at every week. And with the Husafeld carry, it probably would have been something where I Zercher deadlift up a farmer's walk handle and just carry it that way. Or I would just front carry my 220 sandbag around. Then it would have been sandbag to shoulder work. This would just be timed sets. Think, 5 sets of 1 to each shoulder at the top of every 90 seconds. Anything like that, time domain work is my best friend, I find, for keeping myself focused on task. And since I don't have super heavy sandbags, this would have helped me just train explosively, train the technique, and stay locked in. And then some core work after all that would have been for a very nice, productive session. Then Friday. This workout has to be a little bit shorter just due to my schedule, and also, I've been at the gym Monday to Friday. I want to go home. I'm done with the week. So I would have done a shoulder press of choice, probably something like a seated behind the neck axle press, and then maybe just an axle Z press. It would not be a standing strict press though, because I want to keep my low back out of it. Then some dips, and then some bicep and tricep work. Really simple. If I felt like splashing in more, could have thrown in some delt isolation. But that is how I would have redone my training cycle, knowing what I know now. And again, I don't feel that, I've failed per se. And, again, it's not like I was trying to win this show, my first show back, and how many years in the sport's evolved. But I've learned a lot of valuable lessons on how I can better program for myself. So I hope that makes sense to all of you. I think it's just one of those things that's so easy to get caught up on. Well, it's a great program on paper. How come it doesn't work for me? Well, the program on paper can work for you, great, but it has to be adapted, little modifications and changes. I've seen people do stuff like 5-3-1 where they changed it to 8-6-3. I think Brad Zamarki did that. The idea was to add more volume to 5-3-1, or Cody Lefevre. The GZCL method that was super popular, I want to say around 2016 or so. That was actually a modified 5-3-1 program. That's all training really is taking stuff that's known to work, figuring out the underlying principle as to why it works, and then adapting it to better suit your own tastes. I actually need to do this one of these days. I did a rewrite a while back of Alex Bromley's Bull Mastiff program, and maybe I should go ahead and post that up as a YouTube video sometime. He gave away that program for free, so I don't feel like it's controversial for me to post my rewrite of it. Maybe I should DM him, ask for permission before I do that. I don't know, that'd be kind of a fun one to do though. Yeah, any sort of free program would be kind of, what do you think? What do you think, chat? Is that the thing I should consider doing? Doing how I would rewrite certain free programs that are out there? Let me know what you think. That might actually be a really fun series to dive into. Looks like I've got quite a few more people joining in, a lot more viewers suddenly. So For those of you who are just joining in, I kind of just went over why I feel like my programming wasn't as good as it could have been. And hey, thanks, Chris. Yeah, I think it would be kind of fun. Maybe that is something I will look into. I think what I'll do is I'll start asking folks, hey, what are some free programs you like that you'd be curious to see me rewrite? And we could do that. It'd be a fun little thing to do. Maybe do that once a month. And hey, y'all get free programs out of it. But that's all I really have for today. I think, these lessons that I've learned in my prep for this show are very valuable, and they're going to help me do better in the future should I compete again. But beyond that, do y'all have any questions for me? Because otherwise, I don't have much more to go over. Ask away, folks. Pew, pew, pew. Oh, the show hasn't happened yet, Chris. It's in 2 weeks. And, with 2 weeks out, I'm in the deload phase right now. So it's just a matter of kind of letting my body recover, working technique a little bit, staying fresh, and most importantly, not getting hurt. So we'll see how I do come competition day. I'm just fighting for not last. That really is my big target. It is going to be an extremely competitive field. I think it's one of those things where if I do finish last place, got no one to blame but myself. And the guys that I'm competing against, they're all, I'm certain, bringing their A game, so it's going to be a very spicy thing. I don't know. It should be fun. Like I said, this is just me, kind of looking at it from the coach's eye. What could I have done better? What could I have been more intelligent with now that I'm 2 weeks out? Because 2 weeks out, not much is going to change, at least for the better. It can only really change for the worst if I'm irresponsible. Yeah, so next Sunday I'll do a live, and then the week after, so that'll be October 6th, there will not be a live because I'll be out competing. Thanks, Chris, I appreciate that. Well, alrighty, chat. Sounds like we are just about wrapped up here, unless there's any last minute questions, anything you want me to riff on or talk about. Also, I did just drop an 8-week squat rebuild program over on Instagram if you are looking for a squat program and, haven't been training it very seriously for a while. And then next week on the live, I'll probably talk a bit more about Conjugate Kaiju. Seems like there's actually a lot of excitement around this program, and not gonna lie, the program name is pretty damn cool. But otherwise, folks, y'all have a great rest of your Sunday, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come hang out with me and watch me talk to my laptop.